Good morning. I'm here to talk about cyber in our everyday lives, the things around us, the things we touch, the things that we're increasingly connecting to our homes, to our businesses, and the cybersecurity issues with many of those. My name's Ken Munro. I am a pen tester, a security researcher. I'm part of a team at Pentest Partners. There's about 130 of us who do a lot of pen testing, unsurprisingly, but also a lot of independent research. And you'll probably have seen bits and pieces of that over the years. Hacking cars. Actually, it was my car. Bad idea. A lot of challenges around smart and connected fridges, and also Samsung's TVs. We proved they were listening to you and sending your text of your voice conversations over to the USA. Brilliant. We disclosed all that. Samsung don't like us so much. But hey, anyway, where should we go? Well, I want to start by looking backwards, because I think we can learn a lot from the past. And I want to start, my wonderful assistant would bring me the most amazing device I think I've ever worked with. It is a Wi-Fi enabled kettle. I'm sure you're all going, why do you have a Wi-Fi kettle? Well, it's a brilliant device. Is you put it in your kitchen, you fill it with water, then when you wake up in the morning, you grab your mobile app, you press a button, and by the time you got to the kitchen, you've got a kettle of boiling water. Saving you, 30 seconds of your day? Get in. I had, by the way, I did this talk in the States a little while back, and I got the kettle out, and everyone looked at me blankly, which is why it says tea kettle. The minute you say tea kettle, they get it, but they don't have the concept of a kettle mostly in the States. They'll make their coffee by microwaving a cup of water. Wow. Anyway, we looked at this wonderful 100-pound Wi-Fi kettle and thought, I wonder if it's secure. Well, how do you hack a kettle? There you go. Here is the instruction set. This is what you need to do. Number one, like any network device, the first thing we're going to do is port scan it to find out which ports and services are running. And we discovered it was running Telnet. It's not a good start, is it? Plain text, unencrypted protocol. We don't use Telnet anymore, do we? But, so let's connect to it over Telnet, shall we? And I've actually got my kettle is sat over here. There we go. All right. Hey, do you see AT top left? The Hayes AT modem command set. Do you remember that? You've all used it. AT-DT from your dial-up at ISP, when we used to make a racket. We've all used the AT modem command set, so we know we're going back in time already. But it's got a password, so we're stuffed now, right? What am I going to do? Brute force it? No, it'd take forever. I don't know. So we took the base apart, and what we found in the base was this Wi-Fi module. Interesting. Okay, got a Wi-Fi module. What am I going to do next? Well, I'll use my favorite friend, Google. There you go. And there is the manual, the spec sheet for that Wi-Fi module. I don't know, my amazing uber elite hacking skills. Check for the word password. Oh, there you go. There's the password. 6 zeros. God. All right, so where are we now? All right, 6 zeros. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Good. Oh, wow. Now I'm talking kettle. An amazing hacker. So I've got a terminal interface, and this is when I spent a bit more time starting to read through the manual, reverse engineered the mobile app, just pulled apart the Android package file, and I could see how it was working, what it was doing, and the various commands it was sending. And one command really piqued my interest, was the command AT plus key. That was the command you used to give it your Wi-Fi password. That's what the mobile app calls in order to tell the kettle it's a client on your Wi-Fi network, but it needs your Wi-Fi pre-shared key to do that. I wondered what would happen if I typed it, and I got the Wi-Fi network key back. Ooh. Okay. So how would I exploit this in the real world? Well, what I would do is I would probably sit outside your house, on the street outside, with a directional Wi-Fi antenna. I'd point it at your kitchen. I'd do a DDoS attack, so I'd knock it off your Wi-Fi access point. I'd then do an evil twin attack, so I'd create a clone of your access point with a higher signal strength. Your kettle would join my rogue access point. I'd then use 6 zeros, AT plus key, and now I'm on your home network. And if you haven't changed your home router admin password, I could now intercept all your traffic. I hope this community, most of you have changed your router admin password, but so often we find people haven't. Now, we are ethical and responsible. We always disclose privately and confidentially to the organizations involved. We give them a chance to fix the bugs before we go and tell anybody else. That's responsible disclosure. It's the right way to do it. So we disclosed this vulnerability to the kettle manufacturer, and they said, it's okay. You need specialist knowledge. What? The command prompt? get in. And also, they really surprised us by suggesting that you'd be really lucky to find a user with a kettle. Which really surprised me. But anyway, that's when a really interesting feature of Wi-Fi comes to the fore. The concept of war driving. So lots of research groups, including us, go out and do war drives. So as we're out and about, we just correlate the GPS position of Wi-Fi access points. And there's a database on the internet called wiggle.net, W-I-G-L-E, the Wireless Integrated Geographic Location Engine, where you can go and pop in an SSID and it'll give you the GPS location. So you can go and find the kettles in the west of London. Great. Fun, hey? They never actually fixed the bug. They focused instead on releasing the Kettle 2.0, which was using a slightly different chipset. It was using the ESP8266 from Expressive Systems, which was really only a hobbyist chipset. It doesn't have any concept of a trusted execution environment, a secure enclave, anywhere to store crypto keys securely. And that also went wrong, but then they made a coffee machine, which was good, so we could hack it and make coffee at the same time. And finally, they actually went out for independent advice. They actually spoke to a company that consulted on secure embedded systems. I think they're called Electric Imp, really cool bunch of people. And they then created the iKettle 3.0, which is actually secure. It took them 4 years to do it, but they finally got there. Surely they would have been better off taking a bit of advice on day one about cyber, rather than trying to respectively reverse engineer it into the product. It can cost 10 to 20 times as much to reverse cybersecurity back in compared to building it on day one. Right. Well, actually, there's an interesting story about that. So this kettle's not made anymore. And I love doing this demo, and the kettles don't last that long. So whenever I see an iKettle 1.0 pop up on eBay, there's a fight to bid for it. And I often find myself bidding against other security researchers trying to get hold of a damn kettle. Anyway. On to other pastures. Now, I'm going to ask a question. My lovely assistant, Sam, here has got a rather shocking device. Now, I'm going to ask a question. I want a show of hands now. Who has seen my friend Kayla before? Anybody? Oh, not many. You're going to love this then. This is my friend Kayla. She is wonderful. She is an interactive talking kids doll. The child can speak to her. She has a microphone so the doll can listen. It then takes the speech of that conversation, offloads it to a mobile app where she processes the voice into text, looks up a series of questions and answers in a database, and then speaks back to the child. So you can have an interactive conversation. Fantastic. Problem number one. Okay, she's got a microphone, a speaker, and she connects using Bluetooth. So I kid you not, you can connect this dolly to your phone and use it as a headset. You can actually make calls on the doll. You do get some very weird looks, particularly when you're driving, but anyway. Now, first major security flaw, the Bluetooth connection. Now, when you connect your phone to your hands-free car kit, you're asked to do what's called a numeric comparison. It's a feature of Bluetooth BLE. And you can simply check that 2-digit, 6-digit numbers are the same. And that then creates a form of frequency hopping, which is very difficult to crack. Kayla, when she connects to the mobile phone, however, just connects. There is no concept of a pin. And that's a real problem. Remember, microphone Bluetooth, so she's in your kid's bedroom. If I'm in Bluetooth range, street outside, next door flat, next door house, I can simply connect the doll and listen to the microphone or speak to the child through the dolly. She is a spy bug. I find that really distasteful. That was nuts. But what I really wanted to do, and when we bought her in the shop, there were some labels on the side of the box that said she was child safe, internet friendly, and it intimated that she couldn't swear. And so the hacker in me and my colleagues is sitting there going, how the hell does that work? So if the child swears at the dolly, it tells her to go and speak to their parents. Great. But we're like, in order to know that's a swear word, it must have a list of swear words. So we decompiled the Android app, extracted a SQLite database, and inside there found a database called zbadword with 1,536 really good swear words. So we deleted them. And now she swears like a docker. Anyway, that's all on our website if you want to go have some fun. It's not very suitable for work. Anyway, now, as we always do, we reported this responsibly, ethically. We told the manufacturer. We told them they had problems. We even suggested ways they might fix it as well. They dismissed what we'd done as a prank. Well, I laughed, but anyway. And what they did instead is instead of actually fixing the bugs, they encrypted the SQLite database with SQL Cipher, which would usually be the right thing to do. But what they hadn't done is they hadn't rekeyed that encryption key on first install each time. So it meant that every single user of the app had exactly the same static encryption key. So in order to make us swear again, we just need to decompile it, grab the key, resubmit, bang, swears all over again. Crazy, right? That was fun. And just for giggles, we often find smart product manufacturers who fail to handle cybersecurity issues well often go to the wall. And that is my friend Kayla's UK website. And it was amusingly, and in a very old-school fashion, defaced a few weeks ago. It's like, the company doesn't exist anymore. No one seems to know where they've gone. What a shame, hey? But that was a long time ago. What's happened since? Well, in the EU, in NISA, the European Security Agency, they've made some good progress towards some certification frameworks the smart product manufacturers can follow. There's a great one out there. If you've got a smart product, ETSI 303645 is really good. That regulation's due. We've got the EU Cybersecurity Act on its way. In the UK, we have the Product Security Telecommunications Infrastructure Bill, which contains mandatory basic requirements for smart product security to protect us and consumers. I don't know when it's going to get to law. It's at the second reading, was just gone. But we do have laws in California, Senate Bill 327, which made reasonable security mandatory for smart products. And what I kind of liked about it was that the senator who introduced the bill referenced our work on My Friend Kayla, and that was the inspiration for doing it. Get in. Unfortunately, there's been no enforcement action since. Great, got laws, no one's using them. Fantastic. I don't know. There were a couple of fun things that happened. After we published the work in My Friend Kayla, we did some work with the Norwegian Consumers Council, and working with them and a German lawyer, we've realized that Kayla violated some German anti-spying laws from 1947. And she was banned by the German telecommunications regulator overnight. It actually became illegal to own the doll. You would get a €5,000 fine just for owning this dolly, which made giving talks in Germany quite difficult, but that's another story. Anyway, did anyone learn? Did anyone learn through this? We have genuinely seen some good improvements to smart product security. Google's Nest, the Hive product, they're good smart thermostats. There are some other good smart products out there, but we keep seeing problems. I'm going to bring one right up to date. This was at Christmas. Does everyone remember the little Fisher-Price tow-along phones? Yeah, everyone have one? Yeah, I did. Yeah, a little wooden one. They've actually, believe it or not, relaunched it and made it as a smart telephone. You can pair it to your phone and genuinely make phone calls on a little Fisher-Price telephone. Brilliant. You can even dial the numbers using the little dial. I love it. But there's no security on the Bluetooth connection, just like Kayla 7 years ago, which means exactly the same way someone can pass your house, connect to the little Fisher-Price phone, and bug you. Too many manufacturers aren't learning. Sam, have you got one of my other devices? He has. Good on. Now, we talk about ransomware a lot, don't we? And I'm sure many of you have know people who are experienced a ransomware incident. Now, ransomware is, we know how to deal with that on our Windows systems. We know about that. But what about the prospect of ransomware on our smart devices in our homes and in our offices? And we set out a few years ago to see, as a proof of concept, to see if it was possible. Was it possible to run ransomware or create proof of concept code that would run on a smart device? And we were inspired by Mr. Robot. By the way, I love Mr. Robot. The script is accurate. The reason why it is there are security researchers on the script writing team that advise and make sure that what they demonstrate is actually real. Favorite, fantastic. Nothing like CSI Cyber, which is a pile of rubbish. Anyway, what had happened in the episode was there were some magnetic tapes stored in a storage vault, and the hacker was tasked with getting the temperature in the storage vault to increase to cause the tapes to break down. And they did that by popping a Raspberry Pi into a smart thermostat. We're like, it's a bit complicated, isn't it? I bet we can do it more efficiently. So we set off on a path. There was a funny tweet I saw. This was a joke. It wasn't real, but yeah. Could we do it? Could we make it happen? And this is where there's some really interesting learnings about smart product security. Could we find a way? And your friend at this point is the Federal Communications Commission, because any smart device that issues or emanates RF has to be registered and assessed by the FCC. So we found some likely candidate devices and went to the FCC website and started searching for them. So as part of your submission, you have to submit internal product photographs. So before we've even bought a product, we've got a likely candidate here. And what I'm intrigued in is you see these 6 holes down there. Very likely to be a JTAG interface from which we can probably recover the firmware. So we're finding vulnerabilities before we've even got hold of the product. So we get hold of it. That is it. It is a Venstar Smart Stat. And then we realized you could get hold of the firmware without even needing to buy the product. We found on their website they actually published their firmware. You could download it, just a single click, bang, so we're in. Interesting. So firmware typically comes in binary blobs, ones and zeros. In order to turn it into something useful, you might want a tool like binwalk, which will take that and start to recreate the file system. And it doesn't always work. Sometimes you get a bit lucky. We did, and we got the file system out straight away. Good. Those of you familiar with Linux and Unix will recognize all that. We started going at it. We started looking for some vulnerabilities, and one that intrigued us was a copy command, CP. And what it was supposed to be doing was allowing you to copy a family photograph and upload it to the screen as a wallpaper. Great, so you can put photographs of your family on there. But they weren't verifying at that point that it was a photograph. So at that point, we had arbitrary code execution. So we could now start running anything we wanted on this thermostat. Once we had more access to the firmware and the code, we realized that the developer of this code probably didn't realize that people like us existed. They probably thought that that code would never, ever be seen by anyone again, not even their manager. And it became extremely obvious because as we started working through it, we found some wonderful Easter eggs, one of which was that if an SSL connection failed, it was called the SSL shit status. Wow. OK, I think they were having a bad day. And then there was also another feature. It wasn't just one family photograph you could upload. You could actually upload 3, and it would wipe between them. And the routines that dealt with the wiping between the various images, that was called the son of a bitch mode. It's like, wow. That's actually my Twitter background. I love that. I'm still blown away. This is product you can buy right now, and it's got this inside it. So what hope did we have for cybersecurity? And what did we prove? Well, we managed to successfully prove that you could get ransomware running on smart devices. It was custom code. It was a proof of concept. We didn't release it, but we did present it at the DEF CON show in Las Vegas a couple of years ago. What does it mean? It's not really about one product. It's about what happens when you get all of the products. And that's where I'm going to go next. Why does any of this matter? Why is it important? What does it matter if you ransom my thermostat? Well, I'd probably just rip it off the wall and put a dumb thermostat in its place, right? Why does it matter? Well, there are a lot of unintended consequences we find with some of these hacks. And this is one I want to introduce. I am a massive fan of electric vehicles. I have 2. I've had them for ages. I love them. Charging can be challenging. Range anxiety is a real thing on the mainland. Yes, I have run out of charge once. We started looking at smart electric vehicle chargers. Now, the reason why they're smart is to allow the future to balance our power grids. In the past, you could just have a non-smart charger. You plugged your car in, it charged. By making it smart, you can do things like making it charge overnight on cheap rate electricity, or even dynamic charging, so it picks up the lowest rate overnight. But the reason the governments want smart chargers is so they can tell your charger to go slower, or even bring charge back from your car, so you can sell power from your car battery back into the grid at times of peak demand. It's a great way to balance our power grids at times of peak demands in the cold evenings. But with smarts comes great responsibility. We started looking at a number of different smart car chargers. This is one. This is probably the worst by miles. It's quite popular. It's been branded in the UK as Project TV. There's about 3 million of these things out around the world. And amazingly, when you talk to the API, which is the bit that makes it smart, the bit that connects the charger to the cloud to your phone, there was no concept of authorization. Now, when you authenticate, typically at that point, you'll be served a session cookie, when you authenticate to anything. And for each request you make, you or your browser or your mobile device will submit that session cookie identifier back again. The only way this charger identified itself to the API, to the platform, was through its device ID, which was 8 digits long only 5 of which changed, and it was written on the side of the charger, and they were all sequential. So you could just batter your way through all the chargers. Once you got that, you could then arbitrarily issue any command you wanted to any one of the 3 million car chargers out there. And I tell you, when someone's turned your car charger off and it hasn't charged overnight, and you get up in the morning, your battery's empty, that's a real problem. But we looked at 7 different brands, found vulnerabilities in 6 of them. This is a really popular one. Had a very similar problem. It wasn't correctly authorizing requests, which meant you could essentially target anyone's car charger, turn it on and off. And even better, I don't know if you see that, top right. Do you see that's a Raspberry Pi compute module inside the device? Raspberry Pi, great device. I have a couple at home, I use them. But it doesn't have any concept of a secure bootloader, which means there is no physical security control to stop someone rooting and taking control of a Raspberry Pi. I love them. They're brilliant, educational, fantastic devices, but they're not for use in products like this. They need secure bootloaders. Another one. Crazy. ChargePoint, massive ChargePoint vendor, causing all sorts of problems. But why does all this matter? Does it really matter that you turn someone's car charger off? Well, it does, because it's not about you and it's not about me. It's about the fact you can do it to all of them at the same time. Car chargers consume a lot of power, 7 to 350 kilowatts. You can turn them all on and all off synchronously and create enormous power spikes on the grid, enough to cause blackouts. We've inadvertently, through poor cybersecurity and EV chargers, created weapons that other nation states can use against us to knock out our power grids. That's why it matters. Yeah. In terms of other serious effects, things that make me nervous. We've seen through coronavirus and the uptick in the world economy, we've seen our supply chains start to worry. And we started to see impacts from smart devices and connected systems on our supply chains too. I want to talk for a few moments about hacking ships. The UK mainland, the island, we rely upon shipping. And actually, this image, I asked one of my colleagues in marketing to do me an image of some USB ports on a ship. What I meant for him was one of the mapping systems with the USB port on it, but he just said, hey, I'll put them on the side of the vessel, great. I was like, right, fine, that works for me. I'll deal with that. So one of the things that we do a great deal of is working on ships, because they are fundamentally connected utilities. There is every mishmash of technology you can possibly imagine on a vessel, from Windows systems, navigational systems based on old Windows systems, through OT systems, power management, ballasting, and through doing some pen testing for all sorts of ship operators, which has been really, really interesting. In virtually every single case, in over 55 different ships we've tested, we've eventually had remote control of that vessel, either of the main engine or of the steering. Now, you might remember the Hogasaka, bottom left, ran aground. It had a ballasting and stability problem. Fortunately, it drifted onto Bramblebank in Southampton Harbour. Had it not, it probably would have blocked one of the shipping channels there for a very long time. That ballasting problem, if we wanted to, we could have caused it remotely. We look at the Suez incident, where you remember an Evergreen vessel blocked the Suez Canal. It was not a hack. It was bad piloting. But it so easily could have been. And we saw the consequences of a bit of bad piloting and a strong crosswind, and we caused devastation in our global supply chains. Imagine if it was a hack. All sorts of crazy things you can do. And the reason I want to go back to OT, Sam, if you've got the controller, is back to embedded systems again. This is an industrial IoT controller. It's used to control many of the systems you'll find on board a ship. You find hundreds of them around vessels. Guess what? With a similar set of chips and modules, the smart devices that we work on every day. So we did some work. We found a lot of them, so we went off and bought one on eBay, and we found that it was even less secure than the kettle. When the kettle had a password, 6 zeros, right? This had no concept of any authentication at all. You didn't even need a username and password. You just connected to it. And at that point, you could run arbitrary commands on any of the inputs and outputs it was controlling. Turn on ballast pump, cross-feed from one ballast pump to the other. helm, hard over. These are all devices and systems managed by these. So we did the right thing. We told the manufacturer about it, and they said, it's fine, it's on a ship, physical security is fine. But what? Oh, and by the way, if you port scan it, it voids the warranty. What? Woo, okay. I mean, that is the sort of response we'd get doing vulnerability disclosure in the late 90s. And it gives you an idea of the progress that maritime cybersecurity needs to make. It's a huge problem with technical debt on board vessels. They need to catch up and catch up fast. I'm often asked, is this real? You're just fantasizing, Ken. You're exposing problems for the sake of it. Well, do you know what the great thing about it is? It has already happened. There's a really interesting legal case that happened some years ago now, but it went to court, went to the High Court in London. And because of that, all the details of the case were published. It's just a goldmine of information. There are forensic reports, police reports, everything you need to know to unpick the case. It's really worth the read. And what it showed, that the Port of Antwerp had implemented a new electronic container release system. So when the trucker goes to the port, he's given a pin, puts the pin in, and gets the right container put on the truck, takes it off to his customer. And what was happening, truckers were turning up to get the containers, and the container wasn't there. It had been taken by someone else because someone else had got access to that pin. And they had targeted containers containing around $1 million worth each of metal cobalt briquettes. Nearly 50 of them went. The prosecution could only prove 2, but nearly 50 disappeared. 50 million bucks. There's money in those containers. In order to understand how it was done, the forensic investigation realized that a shipping agent had been compromised. A hacker had had external access into the agent, had managed to get into their systems and recover the tracking documentation and PIN release codes. Passed them on to a thief. The thief goes and picks up the containers. There's money. Where there's money, criminals will follow. Another crazy place I want to go to is talking about automotive security briefly. A piece of work we were doing on smart and connected cars. And from a vehicle, we managed to get, with permission, all the way from the car to taking domain admin on the car manufacturer's main network. And I'll show you how we did it, because it's brilliant. Now, some of you will have a mobile app for your car. So if you lose it in the car park, you can see it on the map and go, that's where I parked it. Or you can turn the heating on in the winter when it's cold, or turn the aircon on in the summer so it's nice and cool when you get into the car. Now, in order to do that, the core of that connection between the car and your phone is called a telematics service platform. That's typically a third party who's got a platform in the cloud that connects your phone, a cell tower, into the cloud, and then talks to your car. It talks to a TCU, or telematic control unit, in the car, which is basically a 4G data modem plugged in your car with a SIM in it. And that's how the platform comes together, and that's how, from your phone, you can see where your car is. Yeah. How did we do it? So we had the car, which meant we had physical access to the telematics control unit. So we had the SIM and the TCU. And we started looking to see how we could connect and use that connectivity. So that contained a modem. That contained a private APN connection, which was secured using PPPD, which is a protocol left over from 1996, I think. That's then further wrapped with SSL TLS, so protected comms into the telematics platform. And the front end then brokered connectivity back into the back end of the telematics platform. And we're thinking, hang on a minute. So we can see straight from the car, straight into the telematics platform. Okay, this is interesting. So we could then route our traffic straight into the telematics platform, discovered that it was on the same domain, had the same domain admin creds, which we could then pop the corporate domain controllers. So from sat in a car, we had domain admin on an organization. That's nuts, right? That's how bad cybersecurity and connected products can get. Utterly crazy. And the last place I want to go, again, we're on an island here. I'm sure you all fly a lot. Should we talk about flying? Now, there have been lots of very misleading stories in the press about airplane security. First, I'm a pilot in my spare time. Flying is safe. It's probably one of the safest industries you can imagine. And one of the reasons for that is if there's ever an incident in a plane, it's reported, published, without blame, and shared so everyone can learn, which is why the accident rate in airplanes has gone through the floor. You're far more likely to be injured driving to the airport than on the plane itself. But let's talk about some of the things that we've done over the last few years. One of the silver linings, if there are any, of coronavirus was that a lot of airplanes were retired. The entire 747 fleet was laid up, and they were sent to breakers yards. There are 3 in the UK. There's one at Kemble, one at St Athan, and there's one other I can't remember. But the breakers yards got backed up, so they had lots of planes stood around, and they're all fine because they flew in, but didn't have time to take them apart. So we picked up the phone to one of the breakers yards and said, yeah, those planes you got, do they work? But, yeah. If we give you some money, will you power them up for us? Yeah. All right. Do you mind if we come and hack them? Well, not going to fly again. Yeah, knock yourselves out. So we had an extended period of time where we got to learn about, for the very first time, the cybersecurity of airplanes from the inside. So we spent weeks hacking planes. No one else in the world has ever done this. So much so that actually Boeing came to us afterwards and said, could you give us some advice, please? I'm like, great, can we have some kit to play with too? So here's what we found. Well, you probably know, my flight over had in-flight Wi-Fi when I came in yesterday. So you're probably familiar with connectivity of bits of planes. So you'll be familiar with your passenger Wi-Fi. You've probably seen the in-flight entertainment and communications system. There's then SATCOMs that enables that for the passengers so you can get on the internet. And the pilots have SATCOMs too. And occasionally pilots connect their devices to the wrong networks, but that's a long story. You've then got the EFB, electronic flight bag. I'll talk about that in more detail in a minute. Flight management computers are connected so the pilots can get flight plans. You've got the flight attendants panel. So when you walk onto the BA planes, you see a panel on the wall on the left as you walk in the front door. All right, that's the FAP, or flight attendants panel. If you look carefully, it's got a USB put on it. Those data lines are enabled on it. I won't say any more on that. You've also got connected maintenance systems so that the plane can do self-diagnosis. So if there's a problem, it can tell the engineers at the other end of the flight to be ready to fix something quickly. You've got data loaders for software updates, and you've got quick access recorders. So first things first, you cannot hack the plane from the seat because there are 2 incredibly effective firewalls between you, the dirty people in the cabin, and the clean networks that do the flight control. So you cannot hack the plane from the cabin. That's very much a misnomer. But there are increasingly connected systems where we have found security vulnerabilities in. I'm going to walk you through one of these. Electronic flight bag. So back in the day, we pilots used to have a great big heavy suitcase of all of our maps, our charts, which told us the approaches and how the engines work and stuff. We don't use those anymore. We have an iPad instead, or an Android tablet, or whatever. So there's one particular function of the electronic flight bag that the pilots take with them. When you go on a BA flight, you'll see the pilot's got a little iPad. There's a really important function in there. You might be surprised to know that airplanes very rarely use full thrust on takeoff. You don't want to wear the engines because it costs a lot of money. You don't want to burn too much fuel because it costs money. You want to be good for the environment. So you always do what's called a derated takeoff. So you use anywhere between about 52% and full power. And that depends on how heavy you are, how much fuel you've got, what the wind's doing, altitude of the runway, and lots of other things. And there's a calculation that goes on in the iPad, which the pilot puts lots of data into, which spits out, in the case of Airbus, a temperature. It's called a flex temp. And what it does is it fools the engine into thinking it's hotter than it is, so it makes less power. And that's a calculation you do on every flight. And you need all sorts of interesting things, and sometimes it goes wrong. Sometimes pilots make mistakes, and there's a really interesting case that happened at Lisbon Airport where I think it's 8 different flights, pilots made mistakes because the intersection points on the runways weren't clearly marked. So the heavies, so the 747s, Airbus A380s start here. And the smaller planes, the Airbus A320s, 737s, typically start and take off here. And what had happened is the pilots, when they're entering the length of the runway, into their calculator, entered this. But they were actually here. And so the calculator said, well, you've got loads of runway, we don't need so much power, let's save some more fuel, and gave them a very low power setting. But of course they were here. They trundled off, and they finally got airborne just before the end of the runway. Now, those flights carried on safely. They landed safely. There were no injuries. But it could have been the start of a cascade. And what we've found over the last couple of years is vulnerabilities in those electronic flight bags that would allow us to tamper with the calculations, so to cause the pilots to set the wrong amount of power. In some cases, we had the ability to do it remotely, so we could remotely tamper with the EFB and create the wrong power setting. And when we disclosed this, I think we've looked at 7 different EFB apps now. One of the manufacturers said, yeah, if you fix that, that's a product improvement. It's like, really? Wow. But again, we're seeing things we need to know about on the ground. We know about how to lock down phones and tablets on our corporate networks. But somehow this isn't making its way into the cockpit every time. And just for a bit of fun as I wrap up, on some of these old planes, we find some really old in-flight entertainment systems. That is the cabin management terminal from a 747. And we powered it up. This plane had last flown in March 2020, and we powered it up, and the operating system was from 1994. It's Windows NT4 Service Pack 3, I think it was. I'd forgotten how to hack this. It's so old. But this was flying in March. We reckon with about 3 seconds of physical access, we could have had that IFE completely compromised. Then go right up to date. We found an in-flight entertainment system that was connected to AWS. So what happened when it landed? It connected to AWS and pulled down all the news of the day, the new videos that you wanted to watch, and all the new movies. We discovered we could recover the AWS keys from the in-flight entertainment system. And we could then write any content we wanted to their media store in AWS, and then could have any content we wanted pop up on the in-flight entertainment system. Oh, the opportunity. Now, in fairness, we reported that the manufacturer were really good. They even sent us a note of thanks to say how pleased they were. But you could do random things like crashing all the IFEs out. You'd be really cheesed on a 12-hour flight if the IFE wasn't working, right? That would be a real problem. But yeah, you could do anything you wanted. So to wrap up, flying is safe. But I think there are lots of things we need to learn about as we connect our planes, as we make our systems more and more smart, as we connect our homes to the internet, as we connect our ships, our cars to the internet. We need to make sure we're applying the same security controls that we do on our corporate networks into all the other connected things that we have. There you go. That's me. I hope you found it interesting. That's my Twitter. The blog is full of stuff. How do you actually go about stopping this stuff? Well, I'd strongly recommend red teaming. It's a great way of checking to see whether your network is stable enough, secure enough to withstand a real, true hack attack. Thank you very much. Yeah? Oh. I'm up for some questions, and for each question, I have a pair of the amazing Pentest Partners socks.
Have you done much with vehicles?
Yes. Yes. To the point, there was a really interesting piece of work done 6 years ago by Charlie Miller and Chris Balasek, the Jeep hack, where they'd actually successfully got remote control of the steering servo and drove the car off the road. That was a game changer for the whole auto industry. It woke up, it realized cyber was important. Since then, we've done work with numerous manufacturers and had similar consequences where we've had remote control over the steering servos on cars.
Quick comment, it hasn't made much of a difference.
Okay.
I know.
Okay.
I'm involved in automotive information security. And ISO 21434 is still yet to be implemented. The majority of the suppliers still pay little or no mind to information security.
I see the bigger challenges being this legacy drag you have with auto, is they have platforms that they need to revise, and there's so much legacy sat in that environment.
It's worse than that. Yeah. It's the fact that the suppliers of the equipment are not geared up to provide security as part and parcel of existing supply contracts. So if we take some of the big suppliers, and I've named them, they are absolutely against putting control mechanisms into code. That's all outside of the current supply contract. And I don't care which one of the OEMs we talk about.
It's a mess. It is getting better slowly, though. I've certainly seen things improve in the last 5-6 years. Okay. That's definitely worthy of some socks. There we go.
So, one more and stay on time. Colin in the back there. When you think about security first, surely that also begins at home. Once you sort of assess
pretty dire. So the question was, what's the state of home Wi-Fi router security? You see various research groups publish stuff from week to week with pretty dire assessments. We published a vulnerability in, is it Sky? I think it was Sky. They had a DNS rebinding issue, which meant it was one click and you had access to everyone's, the home router. And Sky took 18 months to fix it. It just blew my mind. I think there were 300,000 users, and we felt at the time we couldn't possibly disclose that until Sky fixed it. So we're nagging them. We even got journalists to nag them, but they still wouldn't fix it. So yes, I absolutely agree. There has been huge progress in the security of home routers over recent years. BT have come on leaps and bounds, but there is still a real problem with quickly and actively dealing with security vulnerabilities and protecting our people. We'll get some socks to you. Have we got time for one more?
Yeah, go on, one more.
We're back here.
Yeah, you talked about war driving. We were doing that sort of thing about 15 years or more. Is that still really a sort of worthwhile thing, or passwords mentally out, harder to get in?
So we use war driving not strictly for compromising someone's Wi-Fi access point. We're more interested to understand where the Wi-Fi connected smart devices are in the world. So if we're doing some research and we want to understand how many of a particular product has been sold, is it popular, is it worth researching, pop onto Wiggle and you'll see how many hits have been made. So it gives you an idea of scale, market coverage, and also some potential victims if you want to go and do something nefarious. I remember one of the most fun things we did was a few years ago, we found a connected hot tub. Why? I don't know. But it meant that we could go out and advise people they have problems with their cybersecurity. You could literally go to someone's door and say, by the way, you might want to turn off the Wi-Fi module on your hot tub. We did that. Yeah. Cool.
Ken, thank you so much for coming along and talking to us.
Thank you.